All right, what's up, guys? VV back with another video. And in today's video, you see it on the screen here, guys. We got to go over the OP10 pre-release guide I have ready for y'all. We're going to be talking about, kind of a formula to go off of when constructing your sealed deck. This is definitely more geared towards the newer players. However, some of the more veteran players, help me out in the comment section below if I missed something. Say some cards down there to really look out for that could be very good in sealed in OP10. We will also talk about what sealed is for those who might be going to their first pre-release event. We'll talk about that as soon as we get into the video. Now, with that in mind, this entire video will be the pre-release guide. We're going to be going over every single card in OP10, but we're going to be moving through it pretty quickly and talking about things like very generally speaking. But with that in mind, we're going to go through as quickly as possible, and that will be the entirety of the video. However, at the very end, we will have a single game on the sim to go over, excuse me, of green-yellow Yamato versus purple-black Luffy. If you're just here to see gameplay, you'll be able to skip all the way to the end of the video and check that out. But as usual, guys, I will have everything time-stamped down in the general description. I'll have all relevant deck lists and links and things like that in the comment section below. Please do not hesitate to put anything down there in the comment section below if you have any comments, questions, or suggestions, or hop on the VV Theory Discord. Link is in the channel description. One more thing before we dive into today's video is we will be streaming tonight. I'm recording this video and putting it out on a Monday. We stream every Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday here on the channel, here on YouTube on the VV Theory, from 9 p.m. Eastern to 12 a.m. Okay, so be sure to stop by, come hang out with us, and see what's up. Okay? All right, hope to see y'all there. Now, let's go ahead and get into today's video. Today's video is sponsored by Nin Garden. Their latest spring collection just dropped with 3 incredible new designs. And to celebrate, they're running a spring sale where you can buy one playmat and get any classic playmat at 40% off with the code SPRINGSALE. This is the newest addition to the spring collection, the Whole Cake Island playmat, which looks absolutely stunning. Now, when you go to checkout, be sure to use the promo code TheVVTheory with no spaces for 5% off your order, and NIN10, again, no spaces, for an additional 10% off. And these codes do add up, by the way. They are cumulative. I will have the links to the website and promo codes in the comments section and general description for you guys, so be sure to check out Nin Garden. All right, guys, let's go ahead and dive straight into this. But real quick before we do, we got to talk to the newer players first. Okay, there might be some people listening to this who are going to be going to their very first pre-release, which is very exciting. Have a good time. That's rule number one, okay? Rule number one is have a good time. But there are 3 things we have to talk about real quick so that you're prepared, so you know what's going on. Well, what is sealed? What is this sealed format? Because typically speaking, in One Piece, you have your standard constructed format where you bring a 50-card deck and you play with whatever leader you have and you build your deck around that leader. However, in sealed, it's slightly different because with this being a pre-release where the new cards for the set the new set coming out are not out yet, when you go to a pre-release tournament, they're going to give you 6 booster packs to build a deck out of. Now, with the deck building rules in a sealed format, in those 6 packs, you'll get whatever cards are in there. You can run any of them in your deck, and you're going to make a 40-card deck, not a 50-card deck, a 40-card deck, okay? Now, with that in mind, you're going to be able to put any color combinations in there. All right, and as far as the leader you're going to use, that is something you're going to have to ask your locals about, because some locals will make you use a specific leader, whereas other locals will allow you to run any leader that you want to. Okay, so you are going to have to ask your locals about that, like, hey, what do I run? Okay, now, with that in mind, what do you need to bring to that kind of tournament? You don't technically need to bring anything. If you go to this tournament, they will find a way for you to get set up, even if you have nothing to go in there with except yourself, right? But it does help if you can bring sleeves to keep your cards safe, because some of these cards end up being very valuable, right? Some of the cards you can open up in these sealed tournaments, you're opening up packs, there could be extremely expensive cards in there, you never know. Or you might just want to protect your cards, right? And if that's the case, make sure you bring some standard sleeves. I would bring around 50 standard sleeves, even though you only need 40 cards in a deck. I would bring about 50 just in case the sleeve breaks. You never know what's going to happen. Okay, that's the first thing I would bring. The second thing is maybe bring some dice in case you need to do a dice roll with your, whenever you go against your opponent, see who goes first. And maybe even bring a leader whatever leader you need to bring for that tournament, or if you don't need to bring a leader, you don't have to. Whatever the case is, I would ask about that. And then Dawn cards. In the game of One Piece, we have Dawn cards for resources. I would ask around about that beforehand and see what you can use for Dawn cards if you don't have access to any, if you're a brand new player. Okay, but if you don't have anything, like I said, still go to the tournament. They will work it out there. You don't have to go in there with anything, guys. They will hook you up for sure if you're a brand new player. Okay, so that's what you need to bring. Now, last but not least, we need to talk about a formula. Okay, you're a brand new player, or you're new to the sealed format. How do I build a deck? I'm going to get 6 random booster packs worth of cards. How do I build a 40-card deck? What should I look out for? Well, look at the top right of my screen here. I can't bring my mouse all the way over because of the overlay, but notice at the very top, the top left of my screen, it says bruisers, blockers, counters, removal, and draw. Now, hear me out. There are certain cards you're going to really look for, you're going to hone in on. And remember, the color doesn't matter in sealed. They can be any color card. But there's going to be some things we're going to look for. So the first thing we want to look for are bruisers. I would say you're going to want somewhere between 10 to 15 of those. And I'll try to put these numbers down in the comment section below. But you're going to look for around 10 to 15 bruiser cards. Well, what is a bruiser card? Well, a bruiser card, I would consider something like this. Notice this card's name is Nami. And it's a 5-cost, 7,000 power, 1k counter card. Well, a card like this it only costs 5 resources in this game, and it's a 7,000 power character. That's a very large character in this game, okay? The standard power we need to attack over is only 5,000. Well, this thing's a 7,000. So I would consider this a bruiser card. But for the sake of sealed, any card that has 5,000 power or more, I would consider that a bruiser style or a bruiser level card. Make sure to have around 10 to 15 of those in your 40 card deck, okay? So anywhere from 25% all the way up to almost, 40% or so, okay? So that's a bruiser style card. Next up is a blocker. So notice this card on the screen here. This card is a blocker because it says it right here. This is the kind of card that can protect your leader from big hits. These cards, these blocker cards, are very, very strong in sealed. Okay, so make sure to keep your eye on these. I'd probably try to get around 5 blockers if you can. Anything more than that is probably okay, but probably not too many more than that unless they also double over as a card like what we saw, like a very big blocker that might have a lot of attack on it. Okay, a lot of power at the top right corner. Okay, then after that, the next thing to look out for are counters. So notice on the left side of this card here, it says a 1,000 counter. I would look for a lot of cards that have counters on them, and specifically when I'm talking about counters, I'm talking about a card like this one right here that is a 2,000 power counter. Okay, 2,000 power counters are very, very important for sealed. I would try to get around 8 of these. That's almost, guys, that's almost 25% of your deck, right? I'd try to get around 8 2K counters if you can. Okay, and notice this card we're looking at on the screen. We will come back and check this out in a minute, but this is a 2K counter, and it has blocker, and its power is very large as well. It's at 4,000 power when you need to attack. That's a very solid card, right? Okay, so here's one. This is a 2K counter. One other thing to consider is notice this card has no counter on the side. Okay, but this card's still not worthless because it's a 3-cost, 5,000 power character, so it can be one of the cards that I'm considering a bruiser in this kind of format. So counters. Now the last 2 to look for, we'll talk about as we get into this video. There are cards that remove other cards from the game and cards that draw you cards. Okay, so a card we'll look at in just a minute as well, we'll come back to it, is a card like this Sanji here. Notice what it says down here. On KO, you'll get to draw a card. So this is a card that draws a card, and on your opponent's turn has plus 3,000 power. This is an incredible card to have for sealed. Okay, so keep that in mind if you're a newer player. Now for removal and draw cards, if you get about 5 of those, that would be perfect, guys. I would try to get 5 of those. So again, let's do the formula one more time. This would be what I would consider a very strong 40-card deck for a new player. I would try to get 5 cards that can draw or remove characters. I would get 5 cards that are blockers. That's 10 altogether, right? And then I'd go for 8 2K counter cards. Remember the card we looked at right over here with a 2K counter on the side? Try to get 8 of those, and then around 12 cards that are really big, like the one we saw here with Nami, a really big card. Okay, that would be perfect. So again, one more time, that would be 5 removal and draw cards, 5 cards that are blocker. Remember, this one was a blocker. 12 cards that are big bruisers like this one here, and then around 8 cards that are 2K counters. That's the ratio I would go for. If you can't get that, you might not get that many blockers. You might not get that many 2K counters, but do your best to try to get close to those numbers, and you should have a pretty balanced deck for a sealed tournament. Okay, now let's do this, guys. That was for the newer players. I know for the more veteran players that might have been a little bit boring, but now we can actually get into the video today, or the actual guide for the rest of the cards. So first up, I want to say that we're not going to go over any leaders, because some locals will allow you to run any leader you want to, whereas others will make you use a specific leader, typically the sealed limited, the 6-color rainbow Luffy. Okay, so I'm not going to go over any leaders in this guide. Use whatever leader, that's up to you in your own discretion. Okay, so with that in mind, we're going to skip over the leaders. Now, first up, we have Virgo. We're going to try to blast through these as fast as possible, guys, in order. Okay, first up is Virgo. So this is not a great card to look for. It's a fine enough 1-drop, and it can search up Punk Hazard cards. So, you know, if you have enough Punk Hazard cards in your deck, be sure to use this card, but otherwise it's not a prime pick for sealed. Typically speaking, searchers are not great for sealed. It depends what you pull. Next up is Sanji. We already talked about this. This is an MVP. Guys, if I say something is like an MVP or an all-star in sealed format, I would prioritize this card to the best of your ability if you can get your hands on it. Otherwise, if you don't get the card, it is what it is. It's just sealed. But this card, excellent 3-cost, 6,000 power attacker that draws a card, replaces itself on KO, and has a 1K counter. Excellent, excellent card. Okay, this is just the alt art for it. Next up is Caesar Clown. This is a 7-cost, 7K card. So it's actually fine if you don't get a lot of big cards when you do your sealed. This is a solid card to play as a 7-cost, 7K. The on-play effect probably won't come in too handy unless you get the card that goes with it. Next up is Caesar Soldier. This is a 3-cost, 4,000 power, 1K counter. It does have an on-play to play up to 1 Punk Hazard type character card that costs a 2 or less from your hand. That might be not very consistent in sealed, but this is a 3-cost 4K. I would try to stay away from this unless you're trying something very specific with your deck. Okay, next up is Scotch. This is a 2-cost blocker with a 1K counter. We'll take it every time. It does have potential upside. If you don't have rock, you can play up to 1 rock from your hand. Excellent, excellent card here for sealed. Next up is Smiley. Now, this is not quite removal, but at the same time, it kind of is, and it's on a bruiser body. So this is a 5-cost, 6,000 power with a 1K counter that can minus 3,000 power. Well, if your leader is Punk Hazard, you'll be able to minus 3,000 power during this turn to a character. If you're running the Rainbow Luffy, he counts as all types, right? Okay, so he will be able to get this no problem, and this is a great card. This is a great card for sealed Smiley is, if your leader is Punk Hazard type. Next up is Chadros. I'm just going to say Brownbeard. He's a 3-cost, 5,000 power character. This card is fine as the bruiser slot, but it's nothing too crazy. It says if you have 1 or less characters with 6,000 power or more, this character gains plus 1,000 power during this turn. The fact that he's just a 3-cost 5K with less than vanilla stats, like he does not have a 1K counter, and his effect, I wouldn't consider his effect good enough to make up for it. This is a card I would probably avoid this card in sealed. However, it's not bad because you can potentially swing for 6,000 with it without any Dawn investment. Not a bad card. Okay, next up is Chopper. This is an all-star for sealed. It's a 2K counter. It's a blocker. It blocks for 6,000 if you read what the opponent's turn effect does. This is an incredible card for sealed. Okay. Next up is Dragon number 13. This is yet again another blocker. These are really good cards for sealed. I don't think people will struggle finding blockers in this set, if I'm not mistaken, but because we've already seen 1, 2, we've already seen 3 blockers in like the first 5 cards or first 6 or 7 cards or whatever. Okay. Next up is Nami, 5-cost 7K, 1,000 counter, vanilla character, great bruiser in sealed. Guys, cards to look out for are the 4-cost 6Ks, the 5-cost 7Ks, and the 6-cost 8Ks with 1K counters. The vanilla cards in sealed are outstanding. They're really good bruisers. Here's the 6-cost 8K that I was just talking about, outstanding for sealed. Next up is Mocha. It's a 2K counter, so it's already worth running. The effect is on play, give up to one of your opponent's characters minus 1K for the turn. That's nothing crazy, but it's also not bad, and it's a 2K counter. We will take it every single time. Okay, Harpy, Harpy. It looks like a Harpy. I saw Happy. That was some type of Freudian slip. That was too funny. We got Monet here. It's a 2-cost, 3,000 power, 1K counter. It has a really strong effect to give up to 2 Rested Dawn card to your leader, and then give up to one of your opponent's characters minus 1,000 power during this turn. So you're playing it out. You're getting a 3,000 power differential, attaching 2 Dawn to your leader or character. cards to your leader or one of your characters, and then minus 1,000 to one of your opponent's characters. You're going to get a 3,000 power differential there to take the board back. Very strong for sealed. Okay, next up is the alt art for it. Rock here is a 2-cost 3k, 1k counter. This is not a card that I would go for in particular unless you're trying to do something with Zoro or something like that. Next up is the our first event here. This is called 10-Layer Igloo. It is a 2-cost counter. Up to one of your leader or character cards gains plus 3,000 power during this battle. Then give up to one of your opponent's leader or characters minus 2,000 power during this battle. Trigger can give your leader or character plus 1,000 for the turn. Okay, this card is outstanding for sealed. This is, so when I mention up at the, notice at the very top left here, guys, when I'm talking about counters, I'm also talking about event counters. Make sure you have a decent number of 2K counters and maybe even a few really strong event counters. Great card for sealed. Okay, next up is Divine Departure. This is a 1-cost. This is a counter and removal. This will be an outstanding card for sealed. One thing I want to draw to your attention, though, for the counter, please read this carefully, guys. I've seen so many people mess this up on the sim. Up to one of your leaders gains plus 3,000 power during this battle. It's your leader only. You can't counter out for your character. Please watch out for that. And if your opponent tries to do this against you and tries to save their character with this, say, whoa, 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 read the card again. Okay, then the activate main allows you to rest 5 more Dawn, so it'll be 1 plus 5. So resting 6 Dawn to pop an 8,000 power character. Very, very strong card for sealed. Okay, and here's the alt art for it, or some type of manga panel for it. Looks incredible. Then we have Gum Gum UFO, a 2-cost activate main. Give up to one of your opponent's characters minus 4,000 power during this turn. And then if you have 2 or less life cards, up to one of your leader or character cards gains plus 1,000 power during the turn. Trigger can KO up to one of your opponent's characters with 3,000 power or less. This is a very solid. This is a very solid event here that will help you get the board. This is kind of like removal if you can't find any other better removal in the set. Okay, next up is a stage. You may rest the stage if your leader is Caesar Clown. Give up to 1 rested Dawn card to your leader or one of your characters. Typically speaking, stages are not great in sealed. Some people might disagree with that. I guess it depends on what the stage is, but I personally would try to stay away from them myself unless it does go with your leader. Okay, next up we have the green cards. Again, we're going to skip the leaders, guys. We're going straight to the characters and the events and the stages. E-Show is a 5-cost, 6,000 power, 1k counter character here, so a great bruiser for like frame on this character. It has on play if your leader has the Navy type. Rest up to 2 of your opponent's characters with a cost of 5 or less. If you're running Rainbow Luffy or a Navy leader, this card will be outstanding in a deck like that. I would pick it up for sure. Even without your without a leader that can get this on play effect, it's still a 5-cost, 6,000 power character with a 1k counter. Very solid. Next up is Edward Newgate, 5-cost, 6k, 1k counter again, and this one has on play if you have 2 or more rested characters. Rest up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 5 or less, then KO up to one of your opponent's rested characters with a cost of 3 or less. Outstanding card for sealed. It has removal. It has ways to rest down your characters, which is pseudo removal, and it's a large enough body to justify the cost. This is a great card for sealed. Okay, next up we have Vanel. Another incredible card for sealed. 5-cost, 6,000 power, 1k counter. That's a big theme within the Odyssey cards in green this set. On play, if you have 2 or more rested characters, draw 3 cards and trash 2 cards from your hand. Incredible. And these last 2 were not leader locked. Edward Newgate and Anel, they are not leader locked. You can run that in any leader if it's allowed at your sealed event. Next up is Kinemon. This is a 2-cost, 1,000 power, 1k counter character. This is something really meant for a more constructed deck list. I would avoid this card completely. I don't think it's great even as a 2-cost. I would avoid this card. Same thing with the other portion of it. Again, this is meant for comboing with a whole entire another deck from a previous set. It's not really for this set. I think it's more or less support for a previous set. I would avoid this card. This card is at least a 2k counter. If you have no other options for 2k counters, I would snag this card. But the other one, so the legs version of Kinemon, I would this one's a 2k counter. It's probably fine, but this version of the torso, it's a 1k counter and terrible stats. I would stay far away from this one. Okay, next up is Kazuki Momonosuke. This is a 1-cost searcher for excuse me. Okay, let me just read the card. Activate main, rest 2 of your Dawn cards and this character. Look at 5 cards from the top of your deck. Reveal up to 2 Akazaya 9 type cards and add them to your hand, then place the rest at the bottom of your deck in any order. This is a very specific searcher. It requires a double Dawn resting cost or condition there. I would stay away from this card. Dracula Mihawk, 5 cost, 6,000 power, 1k counter. It's another one of those Odyssey type cards, guys. On play, if you have 2 or more rested characters, set up to one of your rested Odyssey type characters with a cost of 5 or less as active. So if you get enough of these 5 cost 6k green cards, this will definitely be worth running because it will help you stand cards up to attack again. Very solid for sealed. Smoker. Let me just say this right now, guys. Anytime you see a frame that looks all silver like this, it's called an SR. Notice the rarity at the bottom right. It's called an SR. And I would definitely focus in on these. Most of the time, they're a very good pick. Every now and then they might not be, but for a sealed format, most of the time the SRs are very, very strong. This is a 5 cost, 7,000 power character. So remember we were talking about the bruiser stats? This thing loses the 1k counter on the side. However, it gains a very powerful effect called Banish, and activate main set up to one of your Dawn cards as active, and then you cannot set Dawn cards as active using character effects during this turn. So you're getting a Dawn back. You have to play it out for 5, but then you get a Dawn back immediately to use elsewhere. And then you get Banish. Notice what Banish does if you're a newer player. It makes it where they don't get the life card. It goes straight to their trash. Very, very powerful effect here. There's the alt art for it. Next up is Sengoku, a great 5 cost 7k body. I would snag a few of these for your deck if you can. Next up is Tashigi. This is a great card as well. It's a 3 cost 4,000 power character, which is a little bit small, right? But it does have a 2k counter, and it can protect your cards. I don't think protecting your cards is as relevant in sealed, but sometimes it does come in handy. It does only protect green characters other than Tashigi on the board. Okay, so make sure you keep that in mind, and the character has to be active because you have to rest the character to protect them. But either way, it's a 2k counter, very solid. Okay, next up, this is an alt art for it. Nami, this is a 2k counter. On play, if you have 2 or more rested Odyssey type characters, up to one of your opponent's rested Dawn cards will not become active in your opponent's next refresh phase. So make sure to look for these Odyssey cards, guys. I think they're going to be very, very solid in sealed. Even if you don't get the effect every time, you're still getting a very solid 5 cost 6k body in most cases. And then in the case of this, this is a 2k counter, which is very good in that regard alone, whether you can get the effect off or not. And then the on-play effect has extra potential as well, extra value. Next up is Frankie. This is a 4 cost 5k, 1k counter Odyssey type character. Once per turn, if this character would be KO'd in battle, you may add 1 card from the top of your life cards to your hand instead. That's a very strong effect, but in sealed, that's a little bit dangerous losing life like that. I don't know if it'd be worth running, but if you have no other options, it's still a 4 cost 5k, and notice it says you may add 1 card from the top of your life cards to your hand instead, so you can just let the character go if you need to. Next up is Brook, a 3 cost 5,000 power character with an on KO. Rest up to one of your opponent's leader or character cards with a cost of 5 or less. This is actually an excellent card. I will say this, on KO effects in sealed are typically much better than they are in standard, than how they are in standard. In sealed, your opponent doesn't have as many options to play around on KO effects, and this is a 3 cost 5,000 power character. Brook is an excellent card for sealed, guys. Being able to rest one of their characters down, we'll take that. Okay, next up is Perona, 4 cost 5k, 1k counter. Decent stats, not great, but decent. And then it has a your turn once per turn. If a character is rested by your effect, you can set up to one of your Dawn cards as active. That's a little bit gimmicky and sealed. I don't think you're going to be able to consistently do that depending on what you pull. But otherwise, it is a 4 cost 5k. It's better than nothing, but it's also not great. Now we have Lim. It's a 1 cost 0 power 1k counter. Once per turn, if this character would be removed from the field by your opponent's effect, you may rest one of your Odyssey type characters instead, so it can protect itself. And end of your turn, set up to one of your Odyssey type characters as active. This is an incredible card if you're trying to. If you get a good pull with lots of Odyssey characters in it, this card is outstanding. Okay, end of your turn, set up to one of your Odyssey type characters as active, so you can protect your board very consistently with this character here. Very good stuff. Here's the alt art for it. Next up, we have Zoro, another Odyssey character. 5 cost 6k, 1k counter. On your opponent's turn, if you have 2 or more rested characters, this character gains plus 2,000 power. So he ends up being a very strong character on your opponent's turn. It becomes very hard for them to attack into him because he'll be an 8,000 power character. Not bad at all. Okay, next up we have Gum Gum Dragon Fire Pistol Twister Sister. Crazy name, I know, but it's a 3 cost event. It has, if your leader has the Odyssey type, look at 5 cards from the top of your deck and reveal up to 2 Odyssey type character cards and add them to your hand. Then place the rest at the bottom of your deck in any order, and then trigger, rest up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 5 or less. This is an excellent card if you're forced to use the Luffy, the 6-color Rainbow Luffy. This is a great card for that if you get a good Odyssey pull with some of the cards we saw. Excellent. Otherwise, avoid at all costs, right? Otherwise, you don't need it. Next up is the weak do not have the right to choose how they die. This is a 5-cost event, main and counter. It can be used as a main or counter for 5 Dawn. KO up to one of your opponent's rested characters with a cost of 7 or less. Okay, this is a very powerful effect. It's removal. It is very costly, but being able to get rid of characters efficiently like this card is excellent. Keep your eye on this if you can't find any better removal. Next up is Radio Knife. This is a 4-cost main. Rest up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 6 or less, then KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 5 or less. So it can be the same target as long as it costs 5 or less. You can rest a 6 or less, so it could be a 5, and then KO a 5 or less. It could be the same character. However, you can't rest a 6 and then KO it with this effect, but you can rest a 6 cost or less and then KO a rested 5 or less somewhere else. That is an option. The trigger can rest up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 4 or less. This is just an incredibly useful, high utility event that is removal. Green has some pretty decent removal, and red had some decent stuff as well with the power reduction. That is one thing I will say, guys. Typically in sealed, the removal is very, very scarce. It's very limited, and the same thing with card draw. Looks like there might be a decent amount of removal in OP10. Okay, next up we have the blue cards here. First up is a 2-cost, 2,000 power, 2K counter. It has Dressrosa leader or stage support for the condition. I wouldn't really worry about that too much, but it's a 2K counter, so we will get those if we need them for sure. Be sure to keep your eye on this if you need more 2K counters and you pulled it. Next up is Cub. This is a 1-cost, 2,000 power, 1K counter. On play, rest one of your Dressrosa type leader or stage cards and return up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 1 or less to the owner's hand. This is not really great in any situation in sealed. I would stay far away from this card. Okay, next up is Cavendish. Now we have a very strong draw card here. Check this out. It is a 4-cost, 6,000 power card with no counter, but that's okay. A 4-cost 6K is a very big body. And then when attacking once per turn, you can draw 2 cards and trash a card from your hand. Okay, this is a very, very good card for sealed. It's drawing you cards. It has a huge 4-cost 6K body, and it's very easy to defend because of that, and it draws cards. Excellent. Okay, next up, this is the alt art for it. Okay, then we have Kairos. So this might be one of the better removal type characters in this set, and it's also a very strong bruiser body. Look at this character's power, guys. This is a 7-cost character, very expensive. It's a 7-cost, 9,000 power character, and then the on-play effect allows you to return up to 1 character with a cost of 5 or less to the owner's hand. This card is excellent. It is an all-star. It's an MVP in sealed. There were a few others as well. I would consider Cavendish. We might have, I didn't say or I didn't call some of those all-star MVPs when they probably were. My apologies, guys. I might have missed some, but we've seen a lot of very good cards so far. This is the alt art for Kairos, same exact card. Next up we have Koala. This is a 2-cost, 3,000 power, 1K counter character. It has when attacking, you may return one of your Revo Army type characters with a cost of 3 or more to the owner's hand. This character gains plus 3,000 power during this turn. This is not really a great card for sealed, but if you do get enough Revo Army type cards in your sealed, I guess you can give it a try. I would recommend staying away from it. I don't think it's a great card. Okay, for sealed. Excuse me. So next up is Sai. This is a 3-cost, 5,000 power character. It has on play, you may rest one of your Dressrosa type leader or stage cards, return up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 1 or less to the owner's hand. Again, this resting your stage cards, the Dressrosa stuff, that's a little too specific a lot of times for sealed, even though, yes, if you're running the Rainbow Luffy, you will have access to that because your leader will be considered Dressrosa. It's still just not great for sealed in my personal opinion, but hey, it is a 3-cost 5K body. It's just missing a counter. I don't think it's too bad otherwise. It is the very lowest I would recommend for a bruiser body. Now this next card is excellent. It's a 4-cost 5K with a 2K counter, so it has that 5,000 power minimum, there to start attacking into leaders for, to start getting answers from your opponent's hand or taking cards from their life. And it's a 2K counter as well with a very powerful effect. It has if your character with a base cost of 6 or less other than Sabo would be removed from the field by your opponent's effect, you may return this character to the owner's hand instead. So you're going to get to save your character on the board. This card comes back to your hand, and it's a 2K counter in your hand now. This card is outstanding, and it's a 5,000 power body. Very nice. Next up is Hajradin. This is a 7-cost, 9,000 power, 1K counter vanilla. We'll take it every single time. Excellent. Excellent bruiser. Next up is Hack. 4 cost, 5,000 power, 1k counter. Dawn times 1 when attacking. Look at 3 cards from the top of your deck and reveal up to 1 Riva Army type character card and add it to your hand. Then place the rest at the bottom of your deck in the order. Again, this kind of goes back to the Koala example. If you get enough Revo Army cards, maybe this card's worth running and trying the effect out. But otherwise, I don't think it's great. A 4 cost 5k is not really what we're going for with bruisers. Typically, we're going for these big 7 cost 9ks, the 5 cost 7ks, and the 6 cost 8ks. And if we're going to get a card that is a 4 cost 5k or a 5 cost 6k, we want the effect to be very strong, to be very relevant. Next up is Bartolomeo. We got a 5 cost, 6,000 power blocker here with on play, place up to 1 character with a cost of 1 or less at the bottom of the owner's deck. So again, on play, place up to 1 character with a cost of 1 or less at the bottom of the owner's deck. The on play effect is not super powerful, but this is a 5 cost 6k with blocker. That part is excellent. It's only missing a counter, but it's still very solid. It's a very consistent blocker that can stop some of the smaller attacks that are coming in earlier on. Next up is Beyond. Hopefully I said that correctly. It's a 1 cost, 1,000 power, 1k counter, and it says if you have a Tontatus type character other than Beyond, this character gains blocker. Not a great card for sealed because we can't really build our deck the way we'd like to. We don't have access to all the cards. We only have access to 6 booster packs worth of random cards. Not a great card for sealed. Okay, next up is Blue Gilly, 3 cost, 5,000 power, 1k counter. See, now this is excellent for a bruiser character. It has a 1k counter to help us out to protect our life or our board, and it's just a 3 cost, 5k, an excellent card. Vanilla cards are actually very good in sealed, guys. Keep that in mind. I'm not saying you don't want any cards with effects. You know, you do still want certain cards with powerful effects, but sealed. But in sealed, the vanilla cards are very strong. Okay, next up is Marco. We got another blocker here. This is a 3 cost, 5,000 power blocker with on KO. Return up to 1 of your opponent's characters with a cost of 4 or less to the owner's hand. So it's a 3 cost, 5k body, just like the vanilla card we just saw here. And it has blocker and an on KO effect. It's just missing a counter. Excellent card. This is probably going to be an all-star in sealed. This will probably be an MVP. I'm not 100% sure, but think of it like this. Guys, for those who might be new to the game, remember, if a card has blocker, you still can attack with it. You don't have to. It's not like in Magic where defenders are, you know, I don't think they can attack, right? If they're walls or defenders, whatever it's called, I don't think they can attack. But blockers in this game, they can block or attack. So with this card, yes, it's not the greatest blocker in the world, only 5,000 power. It's probably going to get KO'd every time when it blocks. However, when it does get KO'd, you're bouncing back a 4 or less to the hand. It's working as a blocker, removal, bruiser, you name it. This card is outstanding. Okay, next up is Monshri. This is a 2 cost, 0 power, 1k counter. On play, you may rest 1 of your Dressrosa type leader or stage cards and return up to 1 of your Dressrosa type characters with a cost of 4 or more to the owner's hand. A cost of 4 or more, and then it has return up to 1 of your opponent's characters with a cost of 4 or less to the owner's hand. This is not a great card for sealed, in my personal opinion, but it is technically removable, especially if you are stuck with the Rainbow Luffy. Again, it's rest 1 of your Dressrosa type leaders, so your leader, and then return up to 1 of your Dressrosa type characters with a cost of 4 or more. So you can't return this card. It has to be a character with a cost of 4 or more, and then you're going to be able to return up to 1 of your opponent's characters with a cost of 4 or more to the owner's hand. A 4 or less to the owner's hand. Not bad, but also not great in sealed. Leo, this is a searcher for the leader Usopp specifically, but I do believe the Rainbow Luffy uses all names and types, so you can use it in there, but it's going to search up 2 Dressrosa type characters, and then you have to trash a card from your hand. I would stay away from the searchers in sealed unless you just have an incredible sealed pool for the cards that it can search up. Next up is Rebecca. This is another one that I would say is I would say that this card is specifically geared towards standard play, and I don't think this is a good card for sealed. It's good for standard, not for sealed. Unfortunately, because it's a 7 cost, 4,000 power character, very low cost to power ratio there. It has a 1k counter, and then listen to the effect. On play, if there is a character with a cost of 8 or more, so that not this card, right? Draw 1 card. So this doesn't even draw a card in this deck unless you somehow can build it with Blue-Black Usopp during the sealed. Otherwise, I would stay far away from this card, guys. It does do something very powerful afterwards, but I think it's a little too specific for sealed. Hopefully, you don't see this card as one of your SRs in your booster packs. Here's the alt art. Looks really good. And then next up, we have the events here. It says, follow me and I will guide you. It is a 1 cost main to look at 5 cards from the top of your deck, so it's a top 5 searcher for a blue event. I would stay far away from this unless you get every Dressrosa card that you really want to search for in your sealed. Next up is Barrier Pistol. It is a 5-cost event. Now, this is a solid removal event here, guys. Main, place up to one of your opponent's characters with 6,000 power or less at the bottom of the owner's deck. Trigger, activate the card's main effect. So, guys, this is a very, very powerful effect here. For 5, you're bottom decking a 6,000 power or less character. That actually comes in very handy in Sealed. In Sealed, this is an outstanding removal card. It's a little costly, but it's very good. Next up is Special Long Range Attack Bagworm. This is a 3-cost main, draw 1 card. So it's already worth running because of that effect right there. You're paying 3 to draw a card, and then it has additional value. Then return up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 2 or less to the owner's hand. That part's not great, but you might be able to bounce little cards out of the way, like even smaller blockers, chump blockers out of the way, and draw a card. The trigger says return up to one character with a cost of 2 or less to the owner's hand, just like the effect without the draw card part. Very, very nice card here. Okay, now over to the purple cards. We have Violet, 3 cost, 4,000 power, 1k counter. It's a blocker, so it's already worth considering. And then on KO, Dawn -1. If your leader has the Don Quixote Pirates type, add up to 1 purple event from your trash to your hand. So it has some potential upside there, especially if you're running Rainbow Luffy. Otherwise, I don't think it's great. But the blocker alone makes it worth running, and it has a 1k counter. It's a 3 cost, 4k. This card is excellent for the 3 cost spot in your deck for a blocker. Next up is Sanji. This is a searcher for the Germa cards. I would stay far away from this. Next up is Clone Soldier, 2 cost, 2,000 power, 1k counter blocker. Excellent. We'll take it every single time. A great chump blocker for later in the game. Next up is Sugar, a 1-cost searcher for Don Quixote Pirates type, top 5 searcher, pay 1 and rest of the card. I would stay away from the searchers. I'm just gonna say that for every searcher moving forward, guys. Again, it will come down to, I'll mention one more thing before we move on from it. Again, if you see enough cards that you can search up with the searcher to make it worth running, that's going to be at your own discretion, then I would run it. Otherwise, I'd stay far away from these cards in Sealed. This is a 2-cost, 2,000 power, 2k counter. Okay, very strong. And it has a, let's see the utility it has. On your opponent's attack once per turn, you may rest 2 of your Dawn cards and then rest up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 4 or less. So this is probably one of the best 2k counters in the entire set, other than Chopper, the one we saw in red at the very beginning. It looked like Sanji, but it was Chopper. Chopper and this card are probably the best 2k counters that you can get. Being able to rest down your opponent's 4-cost characters or less in a sealed game is very, very powerful. Excellent card here. Okay. Next up is Senior Pink, 5 cost, 6,000 power. This is an on-play Dawn -1. Add up to 1 purple event with a cost of 5 or less from your trash to your hand. Then set up to one of your Dawn cards as active. This is going to have the same effect, sort of, as the 5-cost Smoker we saw earlier in green. The one that looked like Tashigi. It's not as good, obviously, but this is a 5-cost 6k, and you're going to Dawn -1. You're going to return a Dawn card from your field to the Dawn deck, but then you're going to search up a 5-cost or lower purple event from your trash and get it back to your hand. We'll look at those in a minute, and you get to set a Dawn as active. So that's why I was saying it's kind of like Smoker in that way, where you get a Dawn back as active to use for the rest of the turn however you need to. Okay, not bad. It's a 5-cost 6k. I don't think I would run this unless you get some really good purple events to pull back from your trash, which there are some decent ones we'll look at in just a minute. But other than that, I would stay away from this card. It's a 5-cost 6k, but it does not have a counter. This is the alt art for it. Next up is a 5-cost 7k, 1k counter vanilla bruiser beater card here. Excellent. Again, guys, these are really good for Sealed. Don't forget that. Next up is Fighting Fish, 4-cost 6k. Excuse me. 4 cost, 6,000 power, Dawn ×1, when attacking, Dawn -1, KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 1 or less. KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 1 or less. That's not great, but it being a 4-cost 6k with some potential upside, I think the card's probably worth considering, but it is a brick in hand. For the newer players, what is a brick? That means a card that does not have a counter on the side, so if you need to protect stuff on the board, you can't use this card to help out. So I would try to stay away from this. I think there's going to be some better options, typically speaking. Next up is Treble. This is a very good card here. It's a 4-cost, 5,000 power, 1k counter blocker. That alone makes it worth considering in Sealed, but it also has on play, all of your characters with 1,000 power or less cannot be KO'd by your opponent's effects until the end of your opponent's next turn. That on play effect in Sealed is not great, but it is some upside. Next up is Doflamingo. So this is probably one of the biggest cost characters we've seen so far, an 8-cost, 9,000 power character. And this is an on-play Dawn -1 effect. Play up to one Don Quixote Pirates type card with a cost of 5 or less from your hand, and then on your opponent's attack once per turn, you may rest one of your Dawn cards and add up to one Dawn card from your Dawn deck and set it as active. So you do have to play out a Don Quixote Pirates type cost 5 or less character from your hand, and there are going to be some options for that. The effect is not incredible in sealed, but it is a very large body. 8 cost 9k is going to be very hard for your opponent to deal with. For those who might be new to sealed, the bigger you can make your characters, typically the better. So this is a good card to have, especially if you do get access to the... It says a 5 cost or lower Don Quixote Pirates card from your hand, so you'll be able to play out something like this Treble. You'll be able to play out this Fighting Fish. In fact, I'll say this: if you do get the Doflamingo, this 4 cost 6k becomes very... Actually, excuse me, this is not a... this is a Don Quixote Pirates, but this one is not, so never mind about this card. But then we have Diamante, and then we have Senor Pink. So there are some very large cards to play out with this Doflamingo, even in sealed. So definitely consider this card if you get some good targets to cheat out. But it's still worth considering, period, because of how large it is. Okay, here's the alt art for it. This is the other card that you can cheat out with it. This is probably the best card to use with the effect of the 8 cost Doflamingo we just saw. This is a 5 cost, 6,000 power, 1k counter character. It has on play, trash one event from your hand and draw 2 cards. That's card draw. It's a 5 cost 6k with a 1k counter, and then it also has an end of your turn effect. If you have 7 or more Dawn cards on your field, you can set up to 2 of your Dawn cards as active to use for counters, on your turn or on your opponent's turn. This is a very powerful card, excellent in sealed. If you don't have any way to activate the on play effect, though, it does become a little bit worse. So if you do... excuse me, guys, if you do see this card in your packs, in your booster packs, as like a random SR that you got, I would try to almost build your deck around this card. Whereas, and what I mean by that is, notice what it says. You may trash one event from your hand. It doesn't matter what color the event is, and then you're going to be able to draw 2 cards. So I would include as many events as you can, realistically, with this card in your deck, or if you're going to run this card in your deck. Okay? And it's a great card to cheat out with something like the Doflamingo we just saw. Okay? There's the alt art, looks excellent. Now this is a Don Quixote Pirates card here as well. This is a 4 cost 6k 1k counter vanilla. Outstanding if you get the 8 cost. You can cheat this out with that. Very, very powerful. And it's just a nice 4 cost 6k vanilla body for sealed. Next up is Pika. This is another Don Quixote Pirates card. It's a 4 cost 5,000 power 1k counter 4 cost 5,000 power 1k counter character with once per turn if this character would be KO'd by your opponent's effect, you may rest 2 of your Dawn cards instead. So he has a way to protect himself from opponent's effects from KO. Not too bad. It's a 4 cost 5k body. Not too bad. Okay. Next up is Foxy. This is a 2k counter here. It's a 2 cost 2k counter with activate main, trash this character. If the number of Dawn cards in your field is equal to or less than the number on your opponent's field, draw 1 card. So this card is not like incredible or anything like that for sealed, but it is a 2k counter with potential upside towards the end of the game. You'll probably both have 10 Dawn. You'll have 10 Dawn at the same time typically, or it'll be someone has 9 Dawn, then someone gets to 10, then you're both sitting at 10 Dawn for the rest of the game together. So you'll be able to use it then to draw a card if you need to, if the number of Dawn cards in your field is equal to or less than the number on your opponent's field. So again, unless you have a way to go Dawn -1 with some of these other purple cards, you'll be able to use this at the end of the game to potentially draw a card for 2 Dawn. Okay, and it's a 2k counter, very solid 2k counter. Next up, we have another 2k counter. This is Baby 5, 3 cost, 1,000 power, 2k counter. On play, you may trash 1 card from your hand, and if your leader has the Don Quixote Pirates type, add up to 1 Dawn card from your Dawn deck and set it as active. Again, I know you guys are getting tired of hearing me say it, but if your leader is Rainbow Luffy, this is a great 2k counter here that's going to allow you to also potentially trash 1 card from your hand to ramp a Dawn early on. That's some pretty good utility. In sealed, ramping Dawn is definitely a very good thing to have, because the faster you get access to your Dawn cards, the bigger characters you get to play down and the more resources you have to work with. Resources are very important in One Piece, guys. Okay, next up is Bellamy. We have a 3 cost, 4,000 power, 1k counter blocker. Excellent. This is very much worth considering already. It has on block. You may rest 2 of your Dawn cards and add up to 1 Dawn card from your Dawn deck and set it as active. Okay, again, on block, rest 2 of your Dawn cards and ramp a Dawn, setting it as active. This card is excellent for sealed. Okay, next up we have the events. I do not forgive those who laugh at my family. This is a 1-cost event with main and counter. Look at 3 cards from the top of your deck and reveal up to 1 Don Quixote Pirates type card other than I do not forgive those who laugh at my family and add it to your hand. Then place the rest at the bottom of your deck in any order. It is a way to search up Don Quixote Pirates type. If you see enough of those, this might be worth running, especially if you see the 5-cost Rosinante that allows you to trash this to draw 2 cards. Okay, next up is God Thread. Now, this is just a good card, period, and it is also Don Quixote Pirates. This is a 5-cost main event, an event that you it's a main event with an effect. I can't say it. I don't know what's going on, guys. It's a 5-cost event that you can use during your main. It's KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 5 or less, and then add up to 1 Dawn card from your Dawn deck and set as active. Trigger, add up to 1 Dawn card from your Dawn deck and set it as active as well for the trigger. Here's the thing, guys. In Sealed, this card is excellent because people like dropping 5-cost 7K characters or 4-cost 6K characters on the board, and if you answer that immediately with a 1-card answer that also ramps you Dawn, you're doing pretty well for yourself. This is a great card, and it's a card we can get back with Senior Pink if you get that combo going. The trigger can ramp Dawn as well. Excellent. Okay, next up we have Little Black Bears. This is a 3-cost event with counter up to one of your leader or character cards gains plus 4,000 power during this battle. Then if you have 7 or more Dawn cards on your field and 5 or less cards in your hand, draw 1 card. So it does have the ability to draw you cards. Again, if you have 7 or more Dawn cards in your field and 5 or less cards in your hand, you can draw a card. The trigger adds up to one of your Dawn cards from your Dawn deck set as active. But it is a 3-cost event. In Sealed, I don't think it's quite as bad, but like in Standard, I couldn't. It would depend on the deck you're trying to run, maybe Red, Purple, Sugar or something. But as far as like Sealed goes, I don't think this is a great event to run. If you have no other options, by all means, but I don't think this is great for Sealed. Next up, we have the black cards. We have Usopp, 4-cost, 5,000 power, 1K counter. You may rest one of your Dressrosa type leader or stage cards to KO with 2 or less, then trash 2 cards from your deck. This is probably not a great card for Sealed. It has removal, quote unquote, if your leader's Dressrosa type, but it's trashing 2 cards from the top of your deck. You only have a 40-card deck in Sealed. So think about that. If you're drawing 5 cards for the start of the game and you have 5 life on your leader, well, that's 10 cards out of the way already. So you only have 30 cards left in your deck. And as you're drawing through and you're trashing with stuff like this, it becomes kind of dangerous, believe it or not. But this one is not great. I think there's another better option we're going to see in this set for removal. But I will say, again, if your leader is Rainbow Luffy or if you're playing Usopp or whatever, this character might be decent for removing early threats, even though it does come at the cost of trashing 2 cards from your hand and resting your leader. Okay, next up is Kuzan. This card is very strong. Okay, this is a 5-cost, 5,000 power character, former Navy Blackbeard Pirates type, but it says this character cannot be removed from the field by your opponent's effects. Do you guys see this? Very, very strong. And then the Activate main allows you to draw a card. Watch this. You may trash this character and draw 1 card. Now, then it says play up to 1 Blackbeard Pirates type character card with a cost of 5 or less other than Kuzan from your trash. And notice this effect is not leader locked. You just have to play a character with Blackbeard Pirates type from your trash that costs 5 or less other than Kuzan. I think there's only 1 or 2 targets, 1 or 2 really strong targets for that in this set. I'll try to mention those as they come up. But just the fact that it's a 5-cost 5K that cannot be removed, and then after you attack with it, you can just activate the main and trash the character and draw a card. That alone is worth it. And then if you can get some further value by pulling a card out of your trash onto the field, even better. Okay, next up is the alt art, which looks absolutely incredible. And then we have Kazuki Momonosuke, a 2-cost 2K counter. It's already worth considering. It has Activate main. You may rest this character and one of your Dressrosa type leader or stage cards to give up to one of your opponent's characters -2 costs during this turn. Cost reduction is usually very, very hard to find in Sealed, but I don't think it's super relevant either. It really depends on what you get for your draws. But hey, if it's a 2K counter, you might as well run this card, I'm going to be honest, guys, unless you just have tons of 2K counter options available. Next up, we have San Juan Wolf. This is a 5-cost 7K 1K counter vanilla. Excellent. Then we have Burgess. So this is a 5-cost card we can cheat out with the Kuzan from our trash. It's a 5-cost 6,000 power character with Dawn ×1. If you have 8 or more cards in your trash, this character gains Rush. So I'm going to say this right now. I don't think this card is good in general. Like, I don't think it's going to be great for what we're trying to do in Sealed, unless you just get the perfect pull to run it. So play it, use it at your own discretion. But if you do get the 5-cost Kuzan and this card, in your sealed, I would definitely run both of them then, because you have further value you can get later in the game. This card might have rush. You have no idea how it might go. It's just a solid bruiser statted card as well. Then we have Shiryu. This is a 4-cost, 5,000 power, 1k counter character. This is Blackbeard Pirates as well. Notice that, so again, Burgess is a Blackbeard Pirates card, and so is Shiryu. This is a 4-cost, 5k, 1k counter. Pretty decent stats. Let's see what the effect is. On your opponent's turn, this character gains plus 2,000 power. So this ends up being a 4-cost 7k on your opponent's turn. Very hard to deal with. And then activate main once per turn. If your leader has the Blackbeard Pirates type and this character was played on this turn, you can KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a base cost of 3 or less. Guys, I'm starting to think you should run Rainbow Luffy in this set. I'm going to be honest. There's a lot of reason to run Rainbow Luffy in this sealed. If you're forced to run Rainbow Luffy, of course you're going to. But even if you're not forced to, it might be the right call for this event. Really good stuff here. But of course, you know, do what you want to do. But this is another very good target to get out with the Kuzan. And then okay, if your leader has the Blackbeard Pirates type, well, again, the Rainbow Luffy has all types and all names. Then you're going to be able to use this effect as well. And on your opponent's turn, this character is massive, guys. It's a 4-cost 7k. Next up is Tony Chopper. This is a 2-cost, 0 power, 1k counter. Activate main, rest this character, and up to one of your Dressrosa type leader or stage cards. And if your opponent has 5 or more cards in their hand, your opponent trashes 1 card from their hand, and then you trash 2 cards from the top of your deck. This is a good way to, if you do have the types in your leader or stage, you're going to be able to get a card out of your opponent's hand, which is very strong and sealed. But do you want to run this in your deck over something that might be a little bit stronger? I think we're going to have better options available to us. Okay, next up is Nami, 2 costs, 0 power, 1k counter. Activate main. You may rest this character in one of your Dressrosa type leader or stage cards. Draw a card, then trash 2. Trash 2 cards from the top of your deck. This is a good card to include if you do have a leader that has this type, like the Rainbow Luffy. You're going to be able to draw a card, even if you do trash 2 from the top. That's actually very good, because then they're going to want to attack into this character. Because notice what it does. You may activate main, rest this character in one of your Dressrosa type leader or stage cards, and then draw a card. So you don't have to trash this character. They're still going to need to attack into it. So it can eat up an attack in that way. Next up, 6 cost, 8,000 power, 1k counter, Vanilla Robin. Outstanding for sealed. A very, very strong bruiser stat character for sealed. Frankie, 4 cost, 5,000 power, 1k counter blocker. That can on KO play up to one of your Dressrosa type character cards with a cost of 3 or less for your trash. Outstanding for sealed. It's a 4-cost 5k with a 1k counter and blocker. That alone would have made it worth running in sealed. And then it also has potential upside if you have enough Dressrosa characters in your trash. Okay, excuse me. Here's the this is the alt art for it. Very nice. Then we have Brooke here, 3 costs, 0 power, 1k counter. It's one of the you may rest this character in one of your Dressrosa type leader stage cards. Activate main. KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 1 or less, then trash 2 cards from the top of your deck. I don't think this is great for sealed. I'm just going to be honest, guys. Next up is Perona, 4 cost, 5k, 1k counter. Activate main once per turn. You may place 2 Thriller Bark Pirates type cards from your trash at the bottom of your deck. I'm just going to stop it right there. I think that's way too specific for sealed in this set. I don't think there's enough Thriller Bark support to do it, but it does. Up to one of your characters other than Perona will gain 2,000 power during this turn if you somehow get all the Thriller Bark pirate cards you need for sealed. Next up is Saint Homing. This is a 1 cost, 0 power, 1k counter Celestial Dragon character. Activate main. You may trash this character, and then up to one of your black characters gains +3 cost until the end of your opponent's next turn. Okay, so not really great. This is much more specific. I think it's more geared towards constructed than it is for sealed. Then we have Ryuma, 4 cost, 6,000 power, Dawn ×1. This character gains double attack. Now this is an excellent excuse me, guys. This is an excellent character here for your sealed events. It's a 4 cost, 6k. Attach a Dawn. You're swinging for 7,000 with double attack. Very, very good for sealed. Probably all-star level, MVP level for sealed. Okay, this is the other card I was talking about when we were talking about Usopp earlier. This is a 4 cost, 6k, no counter, but Zoro here is an on play. You may rest one of your Dressrosa type leader or stage cards, and then KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 4 or less, then trash 2 cards from the top of your deck. Now, if you do have a Dressrosa type leader, like Rainbow Luffy, this is a 4 cost, 6k that KOs a 4 or less. That is a very, very powerful card, and it's a 6,000 power body. Outstanding. I would snag this for sure if your leader can handle it. Next up, we have the events for black. There's no longer any need for the 7 Warlords of the Sea. Okay, that's the name of this one. It's a 4 cost main effect here. KO up to one of your opponent's 7 Warlords of the Sea type characters with a cost of 8 or less. Very specific, but I think that can hit a few cards in here. I think it can hit the purple Doflamingo and maybe a few others I can't think of off the top of my head. It's not terrible, but it's a little too specific for this sealed event, in my personal opinion. The trigger says KO up to one of your opponent's 7 Warlords of the Sea characters with the cost of 4 or less. Okay, so the trigger, again, it targets a 4 or less. The main effect targets an 8 or less. It's for 7 Warlords of the Sea. I think it's more geared towards standard constructed. Next up, you have Gum Gum Rhino Schneider. This is a 1-cost event here. Main up to one of your Dressrosa type characters gains plus 2,000 power during this turn. And then if you have 10 or more cards in your trash, that card gains banished during this turn. Trigger, draw 2, trash 1. This card is almost worth running for the trigger alone. And then we can pay 1 to give plus 2 to a character. And then we have the additional upside. If you have 10 or more cards in the trash, it gets banished if it's for our Dressrosa character. This card I think is probably worth running if you have a few decent targets for it. Because worst case scenario, well, I don't know. It really depends how many Dressrosa characters you get, but if you have, like, I would say if you have anywhere between 5 to 10 Dressrosa type characters, no less than that. Anything less than that is probably not going to be consistent enough. But if you have like 5 to 10 Dressrosa type characters, this could be very good. You could have potential banish and plus 2,000 for 1 Dawn, but that trigger is incredible. If you get that trigger, it's going to be really strong. Okay. Next up, we have Liberation. This is a 6-cost event here. Main, if the number of your characters is at least 2 less than the number of your opponent's characters, KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a base cost of 6 or less, and up to one of your opponent's characters with a base cost of 4 or less. So this is a 6-cost event here that pops a 6 or less and a 4 or less. If you have at least 2 less characters than your opponent. And then the trigger is not as relevant to sealed, but it negates the effect of up to one of each of your opponent's leader or character cards during this turn. Really, really strong main effect, though. Eustace Captain Kidd. All right, now we're to the yellow cards. We're almost done. We're on the final stretch here. Don't worry, guys. We got a 5,000 power, 5 life leader here. Oh, wait. We're not talking about the leaders, but I will say this. This being a 5 life leader and yellow, maybe it'd be worth running if you get a good enough Supernova pull. Okay, but again, I'm not trying to talk about the leaders in this review or in this guide. All right, first up is Inazuma. This is a 4-cost 5K, 1K counter. Notice this, guys. The trigger on this we're going to read first. If your leader has the Revo Army type and you and your opponent have a total of 5 or less life cards, play this card. Again, guys, I'm starting to gravitate towards the 6-color Rainbow Luffy. Because it counts as all leader types and colors, right? Very, very strong. It's a Dawn ×1 when attacking effect on this character, though. Rest up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost equal to or less than the total of you and your opponent's life cards. This is actually a very good card for sealed. It's a 4-cost 5K with a 1K counter. The trigger is very situational. Again, your leader has to be Rainbow Luffy or some type of Revo Army type leader. But the Dawn ×1 when attacking effect, rest up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost equal to or less than the total of your and your opponent's life cards. That's not bad in sealed. That's not bad at all. 5-cost 7K, 1K counter Uruj here. This is solid. Next up, we have Imperial Ivankov. It's a 5-cost 6K with a 1K counter, and it has a way to buff your Revo Army cards, but you lose a life. I don't think this is what we should be... I would not run this card in sealed unless you have no other 5-cost 6K bodies, which will be very hard for me to believe. I think you'll have much better options than this, even the vanilla cards. Okay, next up is Capone Gang Beige. It's a 2K counter, and it has some interactions with the Supernova type stuff. I would stay away from the on-play effect unless you just get incredible pulls. But the 2K counter, that is very good. Next up is Caribou. This is a 4-cost 5,000 power 1K counter. It has Dawn ×1. If your leader has the Supernova type and your opponent has 3 or more life cards, this character cannot be KO'd in battle. Okay. That is very strong. Okay, if we have a Supernova type leader and and our opponent has 3 or more life cards, this character is not going anywhere on the battlefield, so we can swing in however we want to as long as we have a Dawn attached to our leader. So not too bad. It's also just a nice 4-cost 5K attacking body with a decent upside. Cavendish, 6-cost 8,000 power 1K counter vanilla, very nice for sealed. All right, Killer is a 3-cost 5K on KO. If your leader has the Supernova type, look at 3 cards from the top of your deck and reveal up to 1 Supernova or Kid Pirates type card and add it to your hand. Then place the rest at the bottom of your deck in any order. Great utility searcher here, 3-cost 5K body as well. See, now these on KO effects, again, guys, they're so strong and sealed. They're very, very strong, especially in this case if your leader is Supernova. Okay, next up is Jory Bonnie. This is a 3-cost 4,000 power 1K counter blocker. Already worth running. 3-cost 4,000 power 1K counter blocker is a solid stat line for us in sealed because the 3-cost spot in sealed is not exactly it's not exactly the best slot in sealed. So having a 3-cost blocker in that spot to develop early on for later, excellent. 1K counter as well, and then it does have an on-play effect, but again, it's very specific to Supernovas. It says you may add 1 card from the top or bottom of your life cards to your hand, and then add up to 1 Supernova-type character card with the cost of 5 from your hand to the top of your life cards face up. Very specific, but it does have some potential to trade some cards out from your hand if you have a 5-cost Supernova to add to your life. Okay, next up is Scratchman Apu. If you're, excuse me, it's a 1-cost, 1,000 power, 1K counter. It has conditional blocker. It says if you have a yellow Supernova type character other than Scratchman Apu, this character gains blocker. It's decent, but for sealed, I'd stay away from it. Basil Hawkins, 4-cost, 5,000 power, 1K counter. Again, an incredible on KO effect here. On KO, trash up to 1 card from the top of your opponent's life cards, and then it has a trigger, draw 2, trash 1. Guys, this is one of the best bruiser bodies you can get early on for sealed in OP10. This card is outstanding. It's a 4-cost 5K with a 1K counter, has a trigger to draw 2, trash 1, and then if you do stick it on the board early on your 4 or 5 on turn and you start swinging in with it, they're going to be scared to KO it because they're going to lose a life in the process. And you get to save an attack, right? Because they're attacking into your character. You can just let that go. They lose a life, and you save a card in hand because they didn't attack into your life. You don't have to counter out. Okay. This is another really good card, guys. Pay attention to this one. Heat and Wire is a 3-cost, 4,000 power, 1K counter. It has on play, rest up to 1 of your opponent's characters with a cost equal to or less than the number of your and your opponent's life cards. So, guys, think about that. If you have 3 life and your opponent has 3 life, you're resting down a 6 or less, okay? It's rest up to 1 of your opponent's characters with a cost equal to or less than the number of your and... excuse me. I messed that one up. That is too funny. I'm glad I reread it. It says the number of your opponent's life cards. So rest up to 1 of your opponent's characters with a cost equal to or less than the number of your opponent's life cards. Remember, guys, we just saw at the very beginning here. I'm sorry, we got to go all the way back now and talk about it. This card is really strong because it goes off of your and your opponent's life cards with this effect here. Notice the effect here or here. But the card we just looked at, we got to skip back to it. This goes off just your opponent's life cards. So if your opponent's at 4 life, you can rest down a 4 or less. If they're at 3 life or 3 or less, you guys get the idea. Still a very good card because if you play this out on curve, think about if you went first. If you went first or second, it doesn't matter. If you went first, you can tap down a 5 or less or a 4 or less, depending on how much life they have. And going second, same idea. It's a very, very powerful card. And it can also make you, want to think about maybe I don't attack into my opponent's life early on. Maybe I attack into their board as soon as I can and then rest down their bigger characters later on with a Heat and Wire to get value in that way. And the trigger, if you have 2 or less life cards, you can just play this card straight from your trigger. Very, very solid. Monkey D. Luffy is a Supernova searcher, so again, stay away from this unless you have enough Supernova cards. Really awesome alt art, though. Very cool looking. Eustace Captain Kidd is probably the one of the best boss drops. So one thing you need to consider whenever you're looking at sealed is what are like the biggest, baddest cards in the entire set. Honestly, so far, I think what we've seen is actually the 7-cost 9K Kairos that bounces a 5 or less back to the owner's hand. And then it's probably the 8-cost 9K Doflamingo. But this card, I might be missing one, guys. Bear with me. I can't remember them all off the top of my head. But this is probably the best boss character in the set. Even over the secret rares. We'll talk about those when we get to those as well. This is probably the best boss character in OP10 for sealed. 8-cost, 9,000 power body. That's absolutely massive. And then on play, you rest this character, and then you could trash up to 1 card from the top of your opponent's life cards. That is really good. It gets a card right out of their life for free. It does not go to their hand. It goes to the trash. They don't get the card to their hand. And then at the end of your turn, if your opponent has 2 or less life cards, you're going to be able to start cycling every single end of your turn. At the end of your turn, every single time, you'll be able to do that cycle effect. Really good stuff here. Okay, and there's the alt art. Again, one more thing. This is an MVP, guys. Go for this. This is the best bruiser you can get in the set. This and probably Kairos. Okay, next up we have Zoro. This is actually a very interesting card for sealed. It's a 3-cost 5,000 power character with some potential upside. If you have less life cards than your opponent, this character gains rush. You may and then the trigger says you may trash 1 card from your hand, and if your leader has the Supernova type, play this card. So yet another reason to really consider Rainbow Luffy. But this will allow you to play the card straight from your life by trashing a card from hand. Gives you some tempo for the next turn. Very solid, very strong. X-Drake, now this card is incredible for sealed. It's a 2K counter, so it's already worth considering. It's 3-cost 3K. The stats aren't big, but that's not why it's good. Listen to the activate main. you may rest this character, and if the number of your life cards is equal to or less than the number of your opponent's life cards, rest up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 4 or less. So it's a 3-cost card that can rest down to 4 or less if your life is equal to or less than your opponent's, and it's a 2K counter. There's really not a downside to a card like this. This is one of the better 2K counters you can get your hands on in sealed. Okay, we're on the events. We're already almost done, guys. Let's meet again in the New World. It's a 2-cost event counter. Up to one of your leader or character cards gains plus 4,000 power during this battle. So it's a 2-cost 4K, and then it says if you have 0 life cards, you get to draw a card. Trigger, KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost equal to or less than the number of your opponent's life cards. Okay, so it's a great 2-cost 4K counter if you don't have any better counter. If you were very low on your 2K counter characters when you in your sealed card pool, this is a great card to pick up in the place of it because it's a 2-cost 4K and it does have potential upside to draw a card if you're at 0 life. Drawing that one card could win you a game potentially. You never know. Okay, next up is this Punk card. It's a 4-cost event with main. Look at up to one card from the top of your or your opponent's life cards and place it at the top or bottom of the life cards. So you can look at the top card of your life cards and put it on the top or bottom, or look at the top of your opponent's life cards and put it on the top or bottom. Then KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost of 5 or less. 4 costs, popping a 5 or less. This might be the best event removal in the game. This and the God Thread card we saw, very, very strong removal. And listen to this trigger, guys. Draw 2 and trash 1. Outstanding. Definitely prioritize this for a removal slot in your deck if you can get this card. Next up is Room. It's a 1-cost event with a counter. If you have 1 or less life cards, up to one of your leader or character cards gains plus 3,000 power during this battle. Then set up to one of your characters with a cost of 5 or less is active. It's a 1-cost that allows you to do a plus 3,000, but it only works if you have 1 or less life cards. I'm not a huge fan of this. This is a little bit situational, but it's also better than nothing if you did not get a good 2K counter pull. This is worth running, and the trigger draws you a card. Not bad. Okay, now for the secret rares, guys. This is Monkey D. Luffy. It's a 6-cost 7K with a 1K counter. Okay, that is very relevant. Every piece of counter we can get is relevant in a sealed. Now, secret rares are going to be very, very... it's going to be very rare for you to pull a secret in a sealed, format, sealed tournament. But if you do get one, this Monkey D. Luffy is a 6-cost 7K with a 1K counter, and it has once per turn, this character cannot be KO'd by your opponent's effects. So it can prevent 1 KO effect per turn, and then when attacking, you may place 3 cards from your trash at the bottom of your deck in any order, and if your opponent has 5 or more cards in their hand, your opponent trashes 1 card from their hand. This is actually a very good card for sealed. It's just a nice 6-cost 7K large body with a 1K counter. It can prevent one form of KO, and then whenever you attack in with it, you can manipulate your opponent's hand, and it's pretty good in that way, okay? This is a solid card, guys. I would definitely consider running this if you get it in your sealed, as rare as that might be. And then we have one more card. It should be the 7-cost 9K Trafalgar Law. That's right, here it is. It's a 7-cost 9K with on play, reveal up to 1 Supernova type character card from your hand and add it to the top of your life cards face down. Okay, then give up to 1 Rested Dawn card to one of your Supernova type leaders. Guys, not only is this this is probably, if I were to rate the 3 best boss characters in this set in OP10 for sealed, this would probably be number 2 now. I would have number 1 as Eustace Kid, trashing a life card. I would have number 2 as Kairos, the 7-cost 9K that bounces a body back. And actually, this would be number 3. I said it'd be number 2. This would be number 3. Trafalgar Law, 7-cost 9K, putting a Supernova card at the top of your life, because that one's a little more conditional. You have to have Supernova cards in your deck in order to gain the life. They have to be in your hand when you use the effect. But those are probably the 3 best ones. Tell me what y'all think are your favorites for this set, for the 3 best characters in this set as far as the boss characters go. But this is a very powerful card. Gaining life is huge in sealed. Being able to gain life is a big, big deal in sealed. It goes a long way. It throws off the math of your opponent. And look what you're doing in the place of gaining life. It's not like you're paying 7 and just gaining a life. No, you're paying 7, gaining a life, and getting a 9,000 power character on the board. A massive character. Okay, really good stuff here. That should be it. Here's the alt art for it, and here's the manga. I really love this manga. I think it looks so good. And then we have some SPs here. We got the 2 cost 2K counter Charlotte Pudding, the 5 cost 6,000 power Sanji, the 7 cost 8,000 power Edward Newgate, and which is okay. I will say this card's actually cracked. This would be cracked and sealed if you can get this card. Okay, and then Usohachi. This can rest cards down. This one's pretty good as well. It's a 2K counter, and then Flampe is another 2K counter. If you get this, this is a good one as well. Make sure to pause and read what this does if you don't already know. Rouge is another very good one for sealed. And then we have the 5 cost 6,000 power Ace that does on play reveal 1 card from the top of your deck and play up to 1 character with a type, including Whitebeard Pirates, and a cost of 4 or less. Then place the rest at the bottom of your deck in any order, or at the top or bottom of your deck. This is the one that cheats out a character. I don't think this is great for sealed, especially in this set. I don't think there's any Whitebeard characters we can cheat out with this effect. Okay, and then we're back to the beginning. So just to summarize, guys, I think that rhymes, summarize, guys. So there are plenty of incredible bruiser characters to go over, blockers, or excuse me, not to go over. There's plenty of bruisers for you guys to get your hands on and to build your deck with. Tons of blockers, tons of good counter power. There's actually there might be more removal in this set than I've ever seen, as well as effects that target a specific leader type and things like that. Removal, card draw. This seems like a very balanced sealed set, guys. I'm just going to blitz through real quick. Tell you guys to look at Sanji, incredible. Next up, Smiley's actually going to be very good, guys. If again, I'm just going to, for this next part, we're gonna summarize. If your leader is these types we're talking about, so therefore if you're running you know, the Rainbow Luffy, you're going to have an incredible array of options here. But Smiley, this Tony Chopper, incredible. Dragon number 13, just a great blocker. 5 cost 7K, 6 cost 8K, bodies left and right. 2K counter Mocha. This card's incredible. It's basically doubles over his removal. This great defensive event here. Great offensive and defensive event. Like I said, guys, I'm just going to start going through this. There are some incredible cards for sealed within this set. Not many duds, I'm going to be honest. Not many duds. 5 cost 7K vanilla, 2K counter here. Just good cards left and right. Really good sealed options. Love these. So many on KO effects as well. And again, targets that really focus in on a certain leader type. Green just had straight removal for their events and card draw. So it's like card draw if you have enough Odyssey going on. KO, another KO. Blue had a lot of good stuff as well. Blue had some card draw here. Bouncing characters with Kairos. This is just incredible. All these cards here. There's just very few bad cards for sealed in here. There were a few, though. Some of the Tentadas characters, like the smaller Dressrosa characters, were definitely felt a little bit like duds. Okay, and a lot of blockers, guys. I saw a lot of good blockers, a lot of good 2K counters, and the thing that this set was really lacking in my opinion, and it's not necessarily a bad thing for sealed, is it didn't have a lot of huge characters, like 10 cost characters. And we saw enough of that back in OP09, right? But at the same time, this set looks absolutely incredible. I'm trying to speed up and go through all these one more time. This Kuzan's actually even going to be good in sealed, in my opinion. Now, these cards weren't great. The little Dressrosa activate main cards, they weren't really great for sealed. 5 cost 7K, perfect. 5 cost 6K is fine. Shiryu. The Chopper, the Nami, and the Brook. There's a Brook somewhere. This 6 cost 8K Robin, excellent. This Frankie is excellent as well. The Brook here, that's what I'm saying. Not the smaller Dressrosa cards were not great. Perona was a little bit weird. You know, this is clearly for like a Perona deck or a Thriller Bark deck in standard though. Ryuma, outstanding. This Zoro, excellent. Again, we're just kind of blitzing through, guys. There's so many good cards. This Liberation is going to allow you to play very differently, guys. Imagine you save some of your cards in hand and just attack very aggressively with your leader, and then let your opponent develop 2 bodies. Your opponent's going to be like, okay, I guess you're going to let me flood the board and run you over. It's like, yep. Go ahead and keep doing that, and then on your 6th on turn, you just boom, get rid of his 4 cost, get rid of it, or get rid of like his 4 or 5 cost and his 2 or 3 cost or whatever. Get it out of here, and it's just that's going to really hurt your opponent's tempo. Yellow Hat's good stuff, some really good stuff as well. This Imperial Ivankov was one of the ones that was not great. 2K counters left and right, like I said, guys. 2K counters all over the place. Tons of vanillas. You love to see that in sealed. Some pretty decent searchability going on as well. There are a lot of searchers in this set, if I'm not mistaken. Got Jory Bonnie here, another blocker. Then we have this Basil Hawkins, might be one of those MVPs, guys. Tell me how these go for you. Tell me, how, guys, after sealed, I hope you guys come back and say something in the comments section and tell me what cards were just your absolute go-tos that were so incredible during sealed, especially if I missed one. Okay? A lot of great alt-arts in here as well. This Eustace Kid, I think, is going to be a bully in sealed, an absolute bully. Okay, we got Zoro with Rush. If you have less life cards than your opponent, we'll take it. X-Rate 2K counter, and then lots of good events. Lots of really good events. The secret rares were okay. Well, excuse me, this one was okay, but this 7 cost 9K Law, I think, is worth building some cards around in your deck if you have the ability to. All right, guys. Well, that's about it for the sealed portion of this video. Now, we're going to finish off with a quick game on the sim because, you guys know I love to have at least something on the, let me get this out of the way. Let me get this spoiler thing out of the way. I like to always at least end with something of some gameplay. Every now and then we have to skip out on it, right? But typically speaking, I do like to have some gameplay in every video because some people don't really care for the spoiler stuff or the sealed, any of the sealed tournaments and things like that. You might not have a locals that plays the game. Who knows? Okay, so volume is off. Speed is now on 2x, and here we go. So we got a game of green, yellow Yamato versus purple, black Luffy. Very interesting matchup here, wouldn't you say? I don't think you see this one every day, unless you play a lot of Yamato. And I have to say, notice the card I've gotten there. I've got that new 2K counter. It's not new. It's an ST13 2K counter Yamato that not many people are running because it's not great, but I want to try some stuff with it, especially when the new Yamato leader comes out. So that's what I was about to say. There's not going to be a new Yamato leader coming out that I'm aware of, but there's a new starter deck coming out for Yamato. Okay, we're going to swing in for 9 there with double attack. Say bye to your top 2 cards. They're going to hand. And guys, we're going to try and fill up this board now. So we're going to be on 6 Dawn next turn. They're going to swing in for 6. We take it. Never lucky. No trigger. Unfortunate. That's okay. We're going to swing in for 7 here, and then we're going to slam down a 4-cost Nekomamushi. Nekomamushi is going to allow us to attack into cards on the board, which is very important. That's a very relevant thing to do at all times, right? Being able to attack into their active characters is a very big deal. Okay, let's see what they choose to do. And notice we do have a Momonosuke in hand, guys. We can actually push our Nekomamushi to life afterwards. We're going to take the hit aggressively here. Now we're going to 1K counter out, with one of these 5-cost secret Yamatos. And now we have 8 Dawn. Let's see what we choose to do with it. So they went ahead and swung in with their Frankie so I could attack into that, so it's still acting as a blocker. But we'll have to see what happens. We're going to go 7 into face here. Go ahead and give me 2 cards from your hand or 2 cards from your life. Okay, they're going to go ahead and give me 2 cards from hand. And now I can do some other things here. I need to play out a character for the turn, and now I can use my leader effect to attach 2 Dawn to my Nekomamushi, and I can attack into whatever I want to on the board. We'll go 8 into 7 here, and hopefully we can get that. They did have to aggressively counter out, and yeah, they could not protect their 6-cost 7K because of that. Because of what we did last turn, swinging 7K into face with double attack. They play out no Nami, then they cheat out with the Gecko Mori. They play out no Nami and a 1-legged toy soldier. They're going to swing 6 into face. We're just going to take this actually. And here we go, guys. Hody Jones, rest down your 2 blockers, and we're going in for 7 with double attack. They're going to counter out super aggressively. Well, I've got 2 more double attack coming in right here. We're going to attach and they're going to go and they're going to go ahead and tap out there. They had no Dawn active. They had a single 2K counter left in hand. We still had a 6K coming in and an 8K, or we could have gone a 5K and 9K, whatever. It's going to end up being very, very hard for them to get out of. Good game to my opponent there. That was a fast one. That was a fun one. That's one thing about green, yellow Yamato. Depending on how you're building the deck, it can typically be a pretty quick deck, or pretty quick games. So real quick, I will show off the deck list from that video. Nothing too crazy here. I'm trying to get this card to work because I just think it's really cool in Yamato. Hear me out, guys. This is a 5-cost, 4,000 power, Land of Wano searchable character, 2K counter Yamato with Rush. It's a 5-cost, 4K, 2K counter with Rush. But listen to the on-play effect. It's not great. Look at all your life cards and then place one of the cards on the top of your deck. Okay? That's rough. Okay, again, on play, look at all your life cards. Let's say you have 4 life cards. Okay, look at all 4 of your life cards. And let's just say you have 3. 3 is probably more realistic by the time you'd be playing this down, like on curve. So you look at your top, look at all your life cards, and let's just say you have 3 in this example. You're going to place one of those cards on the top of your deck. There goes one of your life cards, and it did not go to your hand. Then return your life cards in your desired order. So put them in whatever order you want to. It's like, yeah, but I'm going down a life card. However, for later in the game, playing this out for 5 Dawn, this ends up being a 5-cost 6K with Rush with our leader effect, right? say we have no life left and we just have to go all in. Well, we can play it out for 5, and then that costs us 5 Dawn, right? Now use our leader effects to attach 2 of those Dawn to the character for free and swing in for 6,000 power. It ends up being a 5 cost 6k with Rush at the end of the game, and we still have 5 Dawn to play with, and that was just using the leader's effect, of course, right? And we don't have to worry about life at that point because who cares? You know, if it's at the end of the game, we're having to go for lethal. And we still have 5 Dawn left. We could do something like play out 200 million volts tomorrow. Who knows what? So really cool stuff there. I've been trying to make this work, and I'm really hoping that we get some good stuff for Green Yellow Yamato in that new starter deck coming out. You know, I think it's coming out like I don't even know when it's coming out. I think like 5 or 6 months from now. Someone correct me in the comment section below if I'm off on that. I need to look it up. Whatever the case is, I hope it gets some good support. Everything else is pretty straightforward. I was trying out this Yamato. It wasn't too bad. It kind of forced my opponent to counter out super aggressively, where it gave us the board back. This Hiyori can cheat out this card very early on. This Momonosuke can. So this Hiyori can cheat out Momonosuke or Yamato. Okay, it can cheat out either one of these, or even this Yamato, potentially. It depends on what you're trying to do, I guess. And it draws a card, and then you can go from there. But then we also have some pretty decent top end with Hody Jones and this Yamato, the 9-cost Yamato. We can search things up with this Momonosuke. For the 2K counter package, I could try to include the Otamas, the 1-cost searcher Otama. Let me bring that up real quick. Type in Wano, go to green. It's this 1-cost. It's the 1-cost Otama that came out. Here it is, back in OP07. 1 cost, 2,000 power. Land of Wano 2K counter, but we do already have 12 in here. We've got the 4 Hiyori, the 4 Izo, and the 4 of the new Yamato I've been trying out. Maybe we drop down 2 of these Izos, and maybe even drop down 2 of these Yamato, because I don't think we're going to need all of them. Or maybe even drop down, you know, 1 of each and go up 2 of the 2 of the Otama. Remember, guys, this is a searcher 2K counter, but it can only search up green Land of Wano cards. And we have quite a bit of really good yellow stuff in here we don't want to skip over. So I don't think we should run like 4 of these, but hey, maybe you want to. Maybe you might want to. We're running 4 You Can Be My Samurai to get some extra value from these little cards on the board, putting them back into life with Momonosuke. We have a lot of options there. Okay, so running the You Can Be My Samurai, it does make me want to run maybe, like I said, maybe 2 of these. Maybe drop down -1 Izo, -1 Yamato, and going up 2 Otamas. And then we have some extra value from the You Can Be My Samurai, or extra value from the Otama with You Can Be My Samurai, with Kazuki Hiyori, and we can always push it back to life with Momonosuke. There's a lot of things we can do with that. There's a lot we can do with that. But yeah, other than that, that's about it, guys. Tell me what y'all think in the comment section below. Hopefully that guide was able to help some people out for the OP10 sealed tournament or events coming up, and hopefully you guys do very well. Now let's go ahead and end out this video. Let me bring up the outro. There we go. Hey guys, thank you to everybody who supports the channel, whether you're liking, subscribing, sharing, commenting, viewing, using my TCG player affiliate link, whatever you're doing to help me out, I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much, guys. And hey, especially if you're using Patreon, PayPal, or donations, buying up play mats, or becoming a member on YouTube, hopping on the community with the Discord and everything, or hopping on the Discord and getting a part of that community, whatever it might be, I really appreciate it. Thank you guys so much. Yeah, that's it, guys. Please don't forget to like, subscribe. If I missed anything, please help me out in the comment section below. Please be nice if I missed anything. I'm just human, guys. And yeah, that's it. Till next time. Peace.